I was in the land of cotton, old times are and not forgotten. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. In Dixieland, where I was born in early on one frosty morning. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. And I wish I was in Dixie, hooray, hooray. In Dixieland, I could find dance to live and die in Dixie. Away, away, away down south in Dixie. Away, away, away down south in Dixie. Oh, Mrs. Mary Will the Weaver, William Wall, the gay deceiver. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. But when he put his arm around her, he smiled as fierce as a horse he found her. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. And I wish I was in Dixie, hooray, hooray. In Dixieland, I could find time to live and die in Dixie. Away, away, away down south in Dixie. Away, away, away down south in Dixie.
His face was sharp as butcher's cleaver, but that did not seem to grieve her. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. Oh, Mrs. Jackson, the foolish heart has died for a man that broke her heart. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland.
And I wish I was in Dixie, hooray, hooray. In Dixieland, I could find stand to live and die in Dixie. Away, away, away down south in Dixie. Away, away, away down south in Dixie. And I wish I was in Dixie, hooray, hooray. In Dixieland, I could find stand to live and die in Dixie. Away, away, away down south in Dixie. Away, away, away down south in Dixie.
My first Sunday serving you, I began by saying, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Because while I'm not Fred Rogers, I am Fred Wood. And I've said that every week that I've been with you. And today I count that this is the second of my last 10 Sundays to be with you as your preacher. And so that brings a little nostalgia in this brief time. Wherever you are today, in this room, on YouTube or on Zoom, you are part of the neighborhood, and that's what makes it beautiful. It is not where you are, but who you are and who you are with, and you are with a community of people united in their hearts and hands and minds for the good of all and the hope to help us make this an hour of worship as well as community. We need music. And this week, for the first time in a whole lot of months, a part of our larger choir, a group that is calling itself the Teakwood Choir, because they used to go out for drinks afterward in the Teakwood Bar, and they front of me here, and they will sing us together with our music in prelude of worship. Come on up here, folks. Let's hear your wonderful music.
Can you hear me now? Oh, so for those of you who are at home, if you please grab your chalice if you've got it, and light that with us as Fred lights our chalice. And then we'll say our opening words together as we light our chalice. We'll wait for the slide to come up, which should come up anytime. Do you all remember the words? Symbol of our faith, for the light of truth, the warmth of beauty, and the fire
So we're actually going to do like a homecoming welcome. We'll welcome those of you who are on Zoom. We're actually going to see those on Zoom through the gallery on the slide here, or there we go. Okay, so those of you who are on Zoom, if you will wave to the congregation here, we can see you. And maybe you can even say happy homecoming, although I don't know if we'll hear you. No, because you're muted, but you can say it if you want. Okay. And then those of us here, we're going to wave to that camera right there. It's going to turn, so it's going to show you. We'll wave and we're going to say we miss you, and they might hear us. So go ahead and say we miss you. We do, we miss you. But it's filling up here and I'm really excited, and we're going to sing together, which I'm really happy to be able to do again, to stand and sing. So it'll be come sing a song with us, with me, but it's with us. And please stand in body or spirit. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll sing a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll sing a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
Morning, everyone. I'm so glad you're all back. So we're going to do something a little special today. All of the grown-ups in the room should have a little vial. No, this is not a COVID test. You do not need to stick this up your nose. It's Bubbles. Remember Fun?
the courthouse to register to vote. The police called them troublemakers. But Reverend Reese knew the marchers just wanted to vote like everyone else. But in Selma, segregation kept black and white people apart, and billy clubs kept black people from voting. Sheriff Clark's cheeks boiled red whenever he spotted Reverend Reese and his marchers. He and his deputies blocked the marble steps of the courthouse, and they swung their clubs like baseball bats. Even if the marchers made it inside, they had to take a voting test, which was impossible to pass. Reverend Reese needed a big idea. While working at school one day, he found it. What if the teachers marched? They were the leaders in the community. If teachers marched, people would notice and change would come. But that summer, a judge declared marching and talking about voting rights against the law in Selma. How would Reverend Reese convince the teachers to march now? Watching TV one day, he saw Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. talk about freedom. Who better than Dr. King to turn things around? So he wrote a letter to Dr. King and invited him to come to Selma. Reverend Reese signed the letter, "Yours for better citizens." The night before Dr. King was supposed to come preach at Brown Chapel, someone threw a smoke bomb near the church, hoping to scare him away, but that bomb didn't scare anyone away. 700 people squeezed into Brown Chapel waiting for Dr. King. 15-year-old Joyce Parrish sat in the usual row with her mother, Too Sweet. They jumped to their feet and they clapped as Dr. King walked through the door. King said people shouldn't be afraid to go to jail. They should go to the jail by the thousands to defend the right to vote. At the next teachers' meeting, Reverend Reese said to the teachers, "We're not just teachers. We're leaders in the community." The teachers were afraid. What if we get arrested, they thought. We could lose our jobs. But if they didn't march, then nothing would change. So Reverend Reese came up with an idea. If both of the parents in a house taught school, then only one would march, and that way somebody would be home to take care of the kids if they went to jail. They all started to sign up. Too Sweet was a single mother to Joyce, but she signed up. The morning of the march, Too Sweet put a peanut butter sandwich and a toothbrush in a brown paper bag. She'd need those things if she went to jail. Joyce was worried. Would Too Sweet be coming home that night? Joyce grabbed her mother and hugged her tight. Later that day, Reverend Reese stood by the steps of the school with his list of names. Classes had ended, but the teachers weren't lined up. Did they change their minds? Suddenly, the doors burst open, and one by one, the teachers marched out. 104 teachers held their toothbrushes high, gleaming like swords in the Selma sun. The teachers are gonna march, the kids yelled. Two by two, they started to march. Reverend Reese and Coach Huggins were in front. The teachers didn't smile. They didn't sing, but you could hear the courage in their leather shoes. Crowds gathered and glared at the teachers, wondering, what is it they want? The teachers just kept on marching. Sheriff Clark and his deputies stood at the top of the courtyard steps. "We're here to register," Reverend Reese announced. "I'll give you 1 minute to clear the steps," Clark roared, "or I'll have you all arrested." The teachers folded their arms and refused to move. "Time's up, now move it," Sheriff Clark said, and their deputies all reached for their billy clubs. The sheriff jabbed Coach Higgins in the stomach, and the teachers all fell down the steps like dominoes. Reverend Reese led the teachers back up again. Sheriff Clark grew so angry that he shoved the teachers down the steps a second time. Just then, the school superintendent rushed out of the courthouse. He stared at the teachers. The teachers stared right back. Fire us, they thought. Take us to jail. But who would teach in the morning? He would have to shut down the schools. Reverend Reese knew it, and so did Sheriff Clark. What a glorious victory. Although the teachers didn't get to register to vote that day, the sheriff had the good sense not to arrest them. and the superintendent had the good sense not to fire any of them. With their heads held high, the teachers walked proudly back to Brown Chapel. They were greeted with cheers as the students shouted, "Did you see my teacher marching?" Because the teachers marched, beauticians and barbers started marching, undertakers marched, even some students marched. The Stonewall marchers filled the jails by the thousands. The President of the United States took notice and pushed for a new voting rights law. The Voting Rights Act passed in the summer of 1965, and that August, Reese, Too Sweet, and other teachers walked to the federal building, and inside there were no tests. There were no billy clubs. All the teachers had to do was sign their name. And the first thing they did was vote Sheriff Clark out of office. So normally, in pre-pandemic times, we would have the children walk under a bridge of love, but then we're kind of hanging with the kids. So we thought we would start back today with all of you adults gently, because you don't want to throw the bubbles all over the place, prying the lid off of your bubbles, and you're just going to wave them in the air. We're going to create a sea of bubbles for all the kids to leave with us. And we're going to go out, remember? We're going to go out this way and out the class doors, and we're going to go to class. Thank you all.
If you're visiting us on Zoom for the first or second time, will you please send out a little message on the chat to let us know who you are so we can welcome you. And if you're new here with us at the sanctuary, would you please stand up so we can give you a special welcome. You are invited to join the welcome circle at the back of the sanctuary after the service. After it ends, we're going to have coffee and snack or tea. And you can go grab something and then just bring it back to the back of the sanctuary back there. And then ask any questions you like or just chat. A few things to be aware of. We have a baby comfort room on your right. If you have a little one that needs a little time away from the room, there's a speaker in there so you can still hear the service. And Lay pastoral care is provided today by Joyce Donahue for anyone on Zoom. For anyone who needs a compassionate ear, she may have already introduced herself in the chat, so please look for her message there to reach out to if you need to reach out to her. And then here in the sanctuary, our pastoral care associate is Melissa Bush, standing right there. But after the service, she'll be standing over here to the right, or to your right. And that's for anybody who needs someone to talk to. And both Joyce and Melissa will be available throughout the week as well. The Ministerial Search Committee is very excited to introduce our settled minister candidate, I should say, to the congregation during candidating week from April 23rd to May 1st. And so we encourage you to go to our website. It's vuu.org, and if you scroll down, you'll see her picture there. You can click on that, and that'll lead you to the blog post where it has Sarah's introductory video, where she's introducing herself. And then we hope that after you see her video, you'll be excited too. When we got to see a brief introduction of her last week, and then we heard a message from our interim minister, Dr. Reverend Fred Wooden, which of course, as always, began with a lot of humor. And it ended by inspiring me to pull out my wallet, by the way, and honor a part of my 2022 pledge to the UU. I just did it right there via text. But that transition from being excited about a new minister and then hearing our energetic, funny message from Fred made me feel sad, actually. It gave me a sense of sadness, warmth and gratitude, but sadness, I will admit, that he'll be soon leaving us. You know, I periodically have thoughts of people who have floated in and out of my life pretty quickly. I feel a lot of kind of nostalgia and gratitude to people like that who maybe were part of my life for a short period of time, but with impact. And for the past 2 years, I've gotten to meet with Fred monthly with the worship associates as we've had our meetings, and I've gotten to have the usually very amusing experience of practicing a service with Fred before we do a service. And I've gotten to have some personal guidance from him as well. And not everybody has gotten to see these other sides of Fred, to see him behind the scenes, where I think his greatest gifts show. And I've been inspired by and grateful for his leadership from that very first worship associate meeting. And that was at a time when we as a congregation, I think, were feeling so fragile, having unexpectedly lost our minister and almost all of our staff, experiencing this new isolation of COVID and the shutdown, with the realization that it was going to be like that for a long time to come. Like, oh, my goodness, that's over. Fred came in with so much ability to listen and reflect back to us in this worship associate meeting, very accurately what he heard about who we are, the members of VUU, who we are as a people and a culture. And he demonstrated his intention to help us keep and emphasize the best of what we love and who we are despite such a long and difficult time of transition and separation from each other. So Fred, I'm grateful for who you are and the gift that you've been to us these 2 years. And especially as you continued in strength with us while your wife goes through cancer and you've been working with her and supporting her, helping her stand up to cancer. And I'm sure that's the most difficult and important of all of your spiritual trips. Sometimes we know how long we'll get to have a person in our lives as we've known with Fred. Most often we don't. So let us enjoy who we have in our lives as we have them and be grateful for the sometimes quiet, sometimes loud impacts.
Well, as someone likes to say on TV, I'm all for Clint. That's Yiddish for choke up. And it comes not only because you said it, because I feel it back at you. In some ways, being an interim minister is like being having a shipboard romance. That's to say, you know exactly how long it is, you might as well have fun. But it wasn't fun. It was rich, and it was rewarding. And it's the rewarding part that I get to talk about with the offering. You don't get rewards for doing nothing. Rewards come for completing something, for enduring something, for accomplishing something. And I know you're reaching in your pocketbooks. I need to look at this team report. Wait a minute, give me a second. You're supposed to be there potential there, right? Yes, I'm going to call you out. Because it's not about the money. It's about the heart. We all know that. Most of you, even those who are giving money out right now, if you're doing it, you've made a pledge and you give, whether electronically or by check, or religiously. That's probably the most religious thing to do. And it's fine. What matters here is that we need to make sure we take this away from the thought that we're doing, that money is the church's business. It is not. Maybe you recall when I was preaching my sermons based on Dickens' famous Christmas carol, that Marley's ghost responds to Scrooge's observation that he was always good at business, to which the ghost replied, business, mankind was my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of business. Our business is humankind, and to be kind to all the humans. That's what we're in business to do, which doesn't mean money doesn't matter, but it means that's what it takes to reach beyond this moment, beyond these walls, beyond these people, to have a healing and hopeful presence in the world. Because you give money, people without homes have a place to stay here at least once a week. Because you give money, people who love to sing can sing for the first time in way too many months. Because you give money, we can speak up for those who cannot be heard. And whether we save their lives, we save our own by aligning ourselves with those who have no voice, no power, no presence, no respect in a world that too often puts them to one side. Because we are powerful, we can use our power for those who do not have it. And your money is a megaphone that broadcasts that word to allow us to make mankind, humankind, maybe even all the kinds. We need you. It's that simple. And we ask you to do it here because this is when the business we do is most visible. Remember, the word business comes from the word busy. So get busy. Now take it. Now get that sermon. And now I want our ushers to go around and snatch that money out of your hands. And if you're at home not preaching, go ahead and click and email or text or call. And while you do that and feel good doing it, because I want you to feel good. Sir King will make us feel even better with it. Give money now.
I like to participate in a tradition called kirtan. It's group singing is chanting. And the way that it works is while we're singing the chants, we do it a million times. We sing the same the same line a million times, but we start quiet and slow and we build up an energy and it gets to a peak, like an energetic peak, and then it comes down and we slow it down and we quiet it down. And at the end, we just stop and meditate. And you might close our eyes and we just feel, right? We feel the results of singing and maybe the message of the chanting. And so today for our centering, I thought as we sing Spirit of Life, which is a hymn that I think we all know, well, most of us at least know really well, I thought we would kind of focus on building up that way. So we'll start quiet, not necessarily slow, but we'll start quiet. And then when we get to the lines, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, maybe we take that a little louder. We can back off a little bit after that, but then when we get to roots, hold me close, wings, set me free, we want to really feel that, and we'll like lift our voices even more. So we'll make that our peak, and then we'll quiet down. And so my thought is on this is when we do this, we're intentionally choosing our emotions and our feeling, and that's part of the chanting, right? We start slow and we build it to this energetic peak. It feels really great, and then we end slow. So we're just choosing emotion tone. And so let's go ahead and do that together. You can stay seated. We'll bring up the words to Spirit of Life. And then please join me in singing. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Thank you.
We don't have a slide that says prayer. I think that says something about Unitarian Universalists, doesn't it? But I want you to consider for a moment that whatever we do, it's always with someone, something in mind. We are relational creatures. Even if we're only talking to ourselves, at least we think we're listening. To be alone is to be half yourself. The Greeks had a name, a word, a phrase. One man is no man. It's only in the conversations, inner and outer, that we realize who we are. And so prayer is that conversation, conducted entirely in our own minds, but listening nonetheless. And silence exists in it so that we can hear the echoes of our own thoughts. And perhaps hear Give them. Where is that? We employ the word hear to what we don't hear words. It is to listen. The spirit of life and love and hope and justice. And that is
Before I introduce the choir, I do want to thank Sue Keene for playing our piano and playing so beautifully today. And I believe Linda Gordon is playing for the choir. We'll have the Teakwood Choir coming up right next to sing All Lifted Hearts. Thank you so much for preparing the music.
In the Talmud of the Jewish tradition, the sage Hillel said, "What is hateful to you, do not do to others." This is the whole of the law. All the rest is commentary.
In the Hindu legend of the Mahabharata, the divine Krishna declared, "This is the sum of duty. Do nothing unto others which would cause you pain if done to you."
It is written, it is taught, may it be so.
In the Gospel of Matthew, in the Christian scriptures, the Messiah Jesus says, "Whatever you wish that others would do to you, do so to them."
In the Buddhist text of the Udana Varga, the student is urged, hurt not others in ways that you would find hurtful.
It is written, it is taught, may it be so.
In the Muslim hadith of Al-Nawawi, The Prophet Muhammad teaches, "No one of you is a believer until he desires for his brother that which he desires for himself."
In the Dai Sheng Treatise of Taoism, the seeker is instructed, regard your neighbor's pain and gain as your gain, and your neighbor's loss as your own loss.
It is written, it is taught, may it be so.
In the ancient wisdom of Shinto, there is a saying, the heart of the person before you is a mirror. See there your own form.
The Oglala Lakota spiritual leader Black Elk wrote, "All things are our relatives. What we do to everything, we do to ourselves."
It is written, it is taught, may it be so. Shanti, Shalom, Hasiti, Salam, Hewa, Dohiyi, Pax, Patsomir. 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 Peace. 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 Peace.
That whole golden rule thing, it really does permeate many cultures, as you heard. Of course, I'm a stickler for completeness. If you read the part about Hillel, the great rabbi of the first century, you heard part of the story. The story begins with some non-Jew, maybe a Roman, trying to insult Hillel as a pious Jew for being so involved in the arcana of the Torah, which is many books, saying yours is a very difficult religion because you have to study these books all the time. So this person trying to mock him says, recite the whole of the Torah while standing on one foot. And Hillel, sage that he was, said, what is hateful to you, do not to another. That is the whole of the Torah. He also said something else. Now go and study. Because you'll notice we haven't yet mastered that. And that is the challenge. And that's why we exist as a community. We all know what needs to be done. We just don't want to do it. And so we have to learn not just the law and the prophets, not just the scriptures, but ourselves. As the other passage about Shinto said, every person is a mirror in which you find yourself. And if you do not see yourself in the other person, that's your problem. not the mirror. Which is why I've devoted all these weeks to recounting my personal pilgrimage from Selma to Montgomery, spaced out over the weeks that the Christian community would call Lent, a time of introspection, a time to be measuring the things, studying the things that would help us be better at that whole golden rule thing we're still working on. Because in America, the challenge of race is so deeply embedded, so deeply entangled, so deeply woven into our culture, that even when we don't think we're being racist, we can perpetuate oppressions. That's how insidious it can be. It's the same with gender. It's the same with class. But in America, race is the touchstone that we need to go and find. My pastoral care professor at one point said a pastor has to do three things: find the pain, touch it gently, and give it a name. That's all I've tried to do these past few weeks. And we're not done, because all journeys take time. And I left you last week at the city of St. Jude, a Catholic parish on the outskirts of Montgomery, a church, a school, even a hospital, which in 1965 was the only hospital that would treat Black people. The bishop, actually the priest, welcomed the marchers onto a great field behind the school, where they camped out for one last night. There were Peter, Paul, and Mary, and Harry Belafonte, Sammy Davis Jr. all came to entertain them. I think it would have been worth going on that march just to get into that concert. I did not spend the night in that field. You can't, it's closed that way, but it's still there. Nor did I devote a whole other day's walk, because it's only another 3 miles from there downtown to the capital. But I did follow the route, which takes you up Oak Street to the north, along poor houses in similar states of decay as those I saw in Selma. As I was going up the street, I was passing a Dollar General store across the street, and a ragged old Black woman, somewhat unsteady on her feet, yelled across, "Come over here!" To which I responded, "Sorry, ma'am, I'm on my way right now." And in retrospect, this was an opportunity lost, but I had already walked 15 miles that day. My stamina was running out, and who knows how long I would have been there. I was ready to get to the end. A few blocks north, I turned right, and I'm quickly underneath the highway that was built in the 1970s as part of the interstate highway system. It went right through the midst of a thriving Black neighborhood. Planners decided this was the best route. Why am I not surprised it ended up here? This was hardly unique to the South. It happened in New York City years before, as Robert Caro's book about Robert Moses documented in wincing and graphic detail, how he demolished neighborhoods so that people living on Long Island and in Westchester could drive more speedily into the city. But to be thorough, it happened all over the country. Look at any city where an interstate had to come through town, and chances are it rolled over a Black neighborhood, at the very least a poor neighborhood, one considered blighted, not worth saving. Poor and Black neighborhoods were either raised or boxed in to create the highways and beltways that allow white suburbanites to get in and out, but keep Black and poor people from ever getting out. I cannot tell whether South Africa learned that from us or we learned it from them. But emptying neighborhoods and fencing them in was actual national policy for a time in South Africa. I was there in May of 2019 visiting a place called the District 6 Museum. District 6 was a region near downtown Cape Town. And in 1966, despite having been populated for years by indigenous Blacks, by immigrant Malays, by Arabs and Hispanics, and all the people who wanted to be there and could be nowhere else, the government said, from here on in, this is a whites-only neighborhood. And not only did they make them all leave, they tore down every house. so there was no place to go back to. After all, it was a slum, they said, quote, fit only for clearance, not rehabilitation. They also portrayed the area as crime-ridden and dangerous, full of immoral activities like gambling, drinking, and prostitution. Gee, I wonder how that sounds so familiar there in South Africa. Ever hear that rhetoric anywhere else? In some ways, South Africa was at least more honest. They said so openly. They didn't pave it over with a highway. They just built houses and put white people there. Clinging to its original spot in Montgomery, though, in the shadow of Interstate 65, is the original Holt Street Baptist Church. The church has moved to a different location, but it's now occupied by another congregation. But this is where Dr. King first spoke as president of the Montgomery Improvement Association. That was the group organized to get the bus boycott going. Wait, wasn't I talking about Selma to Montgomery? Am I suddenly in 1955? Yes, I am. Because Montgomery was the site of more than one struggle against depression. He had been elected president, 26 years old at the time, newest kid on the block. Now you know why he got elected. And he had been elected an hour before, just up the street at AME Mount Zion Baptist Church. Now, the Holt Street building is still being used by a congregation. Outside are two men repairing the trim as I stand on the sidewalk and read the historic marker. But all that is left of the Zion Methodist building is a shell boarded up, bits of stained glass, and a chain link fence around it. There's a marker here too, but I think today I'm the only one who's going to see it. The rest of the neighborhood is just about empty. Holt Street runs into Day Street, which faces the Family Lounge. It's a former house turned into a store. It's closed today. East on Day Street, I get to what is called the Four Points, which was the center of the Black community back then, a commercial place where stores thrived. Today, all there is a decaying canopy of a gas station presiding over cracked concrete filled with grass. I see how each victory came with a price. Bishop Desmond Tutu said liberation is costly. I never knew how much. 2 blocks further on, I actually come into downtown from atop a hill that looks all the way down to Court Street, to the Court Street Fountain. That's a fountain that marks the downtown center, and it marks the spot where 2 competing towns were merged into one to create Montgomery, Alabama. From here on, it is marble-sided libraries and churches, brick and steel businesses, wide streets and tall hotels. Down at the fountain, which is a traffic circle, I read that this was where slave auctions took place, and not the only place in town. Dexter Street leads up the hill, up to the Capitol, which you can see from the bottom of the hill. It's a grand building in pale yellow splendor with its white dome gleaming in the sun. Just a block before the state capitol, as I'm climbing up Dexter Street, I reach Dexter Street Baptist Church, which is where Dr. King got his start in ministry. He was here in 1955, stayed for 6 years before moving on. And his return a decade later as a national leader is another reason why the church prizes his presence in those first years of his ministries. Now, Dexter Avenue, King Memorial Baptist Church. I was puzzled. Why is it so close to the state capitol? That's usually pretty prized real estate. Why is a black church so prominent? And then I recall a curious and paradoxical legacy of the Old South, which was an almost intimate closeness between black and white that we rarely found up north, physically close to one another. When law and culture ensure subordination, you don't have to put them all in another place. You can live side by side because you know that they're not going to be a danger to you, at least certain things. Lest you think this is actually friendly proximity, that they welcome this church, Right across the street from the church is a marble slab commemorating the fact that along this route, meaning Dexter Avenue, moved the inaugural parade of Jefferson Davis. And that the song Dixie was played for the first time on that occasion. The memorial was placed there by the Sophia Bibb chapter of the United Daughters of the Confederacy on April 26th, 1942. Almost a century later. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. Everywhere I've been tells me that it was easy for white people to look away from the reality of our own apartheid system. Be it the gentility of Southern manners, the ubiquity of people of color all behaving as instructed, or even now the semblance of modernity, one can easily believe that all the unpleasantness is over and done with now. And the South really is now crepe myrtle and mint tulips, a sort of Southern nostalgia theme park we can all visit. If the cruelties of slavery are gone and the afflictions of Jim Crow are in the past, we should remember that even in majority Black Montgomery, they did not elect a Black mayor until the November day I was there in 2019. Not the happiest place on earth by any means. At the top of the hill, the state buildings begin to appear with their monumental style, marble-clad architecture. One is named for Lurleen Wallace, the wife of George Wallace, who was elected when George couldn't be reelected because he was not allowed to serve consecutive terms. So they elected his wife, whose closest advisor was, guess who, George Wallace. If that deception is transparent to everyone, the other deception was less so. She died in office 18 months later of uterine cancer, which she did not know about until the last months because the doctor told George, not her. Evasion, deceit, pretending. If that's what Southern gentility is, you can have it. On that day in March of 1965, thousands came up Dexter Street, 300 marched, but by the time they got to St. Jude, there were thousands. And by the time they moved from St. Jude to downtown, there were 25,000 people. You saw a picture in the opening song, didn't you? Filling Dexter Street from the bottom of the hill to the top. At the top, at the bottom of the steps, Dr. King delivered his How Long speech. Chances are you don't know that one, but if you listen to any of his speeches, he says the same thing over and over because we haven't yet heard what he said even now. This is part of what he said. I know you're asking today, how long will it take? Somebody's asking, how long will prejudice blind the visions of men, darken their understanding, and drive bright-eyed wisdom from her sacred throne? Someone's asking, when will wounded justice lying prostrate on the streets of Selma and Birmingham and communities all over the South be lifted from this dust of shame to reign supreme among the children of men? This boy can preach. Wow. Remember, he's only 26 years old when he started. He's now only 36 years old. I couldn't hold two words together at that age. Someone's asking, when will the radiant star of hope be plunged against the nocturnal bosom of this lonely night, plucked from weary souls with chains of fear and manacles of death? How long will justice be crucified and truth buried? I came to say to you this afternoon, however difficult the moment, however frustrating the hour, yes, that is an echo of 1963. It will not be long, because trust, crushed to earth, will rise again. How long? Not long, because no lie can live forever. How long? Not long, because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Those were not his words, but he gave them new life. So much so that a previous president had them woven into the rug that sat in the Oval Office floor upon which people walked, but few actually read. Today is Palm Sunday in the Christian community, when they recall, sometimes reenact the moment when Jesus rides into Jerusalem to great acclaim. In some ways, that day in Montgomery was like Palm Sunday, wasn't it? Last week, I quoted part of that story as told in Luke when some of the Pharisees came up to the rabbi and said, "Teacher, order your disciples to stop," meaning stop waving palms and saying, "Hosanna." And Jesus answered, "I tell you, if they were silent, the stones would shout." In other words, you cannot stop the truth crushed to earth. It will rise again. Of course, that story was wrong in the long run. By Friday, Jesus was dead. His followers scattered. Rome had triumphed again. In that sense, Palm Sunday is ironic, not heroic. A grand gesture that yielded nothing at all. A scene from a Greek tragedy. After giving his speech, King and the others walked up the mighty staircase to present a petition to Governor George Wallace. They knocked on the door. The guard said he is not in. They would not leave, and eventually a secretary came out and took the petitions, went in and closed the door behind her. It was an intentional slight. And there where they stood on the portico, the marble portico, inlaid in marble on the great porch is a six-pointed bronze star, to this day embedded in that porch, saying, placed by the Sophia Bibb Chapter, United Daughters of the Confederacy, on the spot where Jefferson Davis was inaugurated February 18th, 1861. It's still there. And after Jesus cleansed the temple, he went back to Bethany, and the priests set up the money changers' tables again, and business resumed as usual. This is an old story that you can hear again and again. People knock on the door of justice, they are ignored, and injustice waves it away and resumes its business again. I look around as I stand there, and there are two statues there on the lawn, flanking the park, flanking the staircase that leads down to the avenue. On one side is, guess who? Jefferson Davis. On the other side, James Marion Sims. Who is that, you ask? He is, quote, the father of modern gynecology. But before you think too much, he discovered women's needs by experimenting on enslaved women. In a day before there was anesthetic, in a day before there was disinfectant. How often we have paid unknown prices for the privileges we have today. A Palm Sunday hymn from our book, written by a minister who served one of the churches I served, one in Brooklyn, reads in part, long ages dim the message, and custom has sufficed for merchants and for princes to bow and own him Christ. You know what it means. Anyone can go to church in their best clothes, say all the right words, claim to be a Christian, wave the palms. But the song goes on. But when another spirit arises from the plain, the courts of power tremble and crucify again. This is not news. It is a tragedy played out annually, and it is our task to make sure it doesn't play out forever. I stand alone at the top of the stairs. I look down Dexter Street. It's almost ended being a weekend. I look down the street, but I do not look away, look away, look away. I see the thousands there and say, you will not have been here in vain. With that, I close today's remarks and hope to see you on Easter Sunday. I don't know if it will be a more hopeful message, but it will be worth hearing. Ms. Noel, can you help us by singing us toward the end of our hour together?
Yes. Please stand in body or spirit as we join our voices together to sing one of our favorite hymns as a congregation, I think, Blue Boat Home. Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor nor port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, oh, we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in a beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite sea below me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor nor port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
We are in the midst of Ramadan. And so these words from Sa'adi would be useful as we pass out into the coming week. To worship God is nothing other than to serve Him. It does not need rosaries, prayer carpets, or robes. All people are members of the same body, created from one essence. If fate brings suffering to one, the others cannot stay at rest. Be restless, friends, until suffering is delivered. See you next week. Celebrate another Sunday together. Noel, would you help us do this?
Yes. Distinguish the chalice with our closing words. Though we extinguish ourselves, our connection to each other and this community remains. May its light guide us this week as we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, and fill our world with compassion until we meet again. Go in peace.